Hi everybody, I'm Brian. Let's go do some woodworking. Today's video is brought to you by Atlas 46. They're the makers of the tool belt that I've been wearing all day and several other things that I use here in the shop. They're a great company. They make really nice quality items. This is called the Hamilton Woodworker, and it was designed specifically for woodworkers. It fits a block plane and a small square and rulers, and it's really specific to woodworking and working in the shop and finished carpentry. And it's a great little tool that I've really come to use every day here in the shop. Okay, so my next step here is I've made a stretcher that I want to attach to both legs of the square to keep it rigid and perfectly square all the time. So I have a nice little piece of contrasting curly maple that will look nice on there, and I've milled it to the size that I want. It's square on all sides and flat and straight, and now we're going to cut some miters on it and create some dovetails. Okay, so I've cut my stretcher, I've made a miter on either end, and now I want to make that miter absolutely perfect. It has to be square in this direction, and it has to be at a perfect 45-degree angle in that direction. And I'm going to do that by using my block plane and a shooting board. So this shooting board has a little shelf on the end of it that I can butt things up into, and because I'm making a miter, I've just cut a quick little triangle with plywood that I'm butting into there, and that'll serve as a backstop for my piece while I'm working on it. Now, when I'm doing this, as I come off the top of the miter, I'm going to wind up making a shaving on the top of there that's going to interfere with measuring it, and I don't need it to be there anyway for what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take my knife and trim that off. And then I can start working on it. First I want to look at it and see where I need to plane it. It's pretty close, but it's not quite square. So I'm going to take a few passes off of the entire length of the miter, keep the angle the same as it is, but to start squaring it up. And I know I can make this perfectly square by doing this, because this block plane has a bottom and sides that are milled exactly at 9 degrees to one another. So I just let it ride on that milled surface of the block plane. Okay, it seems like I'm cutting the whole width of the miter now. So I can get in there and check it. And I can see that there's a space at the top, and I'm touching at the bottom. So I'm going to go back, and I'm just going to take wood from the bottom of the miter, and I'm going to stop before I finish. See what that did. A little bit more. Check it again. Okay, now I'm dead on 45 degrees, so I'm going to do one more pass. And I'm going to use the same principle I use when I'm jointing a board. I'm going to make a cut that starts right after the beginning and stops before I reach the end. So I'm sort of going to create a hollow along the miter to make sure that I'm not rounding anything over. And then once I've made one little pass like that, I'm going to make one full pass, and then it'll be done. So I'll make my first little cut. There we go. I felt that cut the whole way. So now I'm going to start right at the beginning. Make one cut, done. And so that should be perfectly 45 degrees and nice and square. There we go. Okay, so I've got my piece cut with miters on either end, and I want to cut a dovetail on either end of this piece of wood. So I have a marking gauge that I'm going to set to 1/2 inch. Okay, that's set up. Now I'm going to take a protractor and I'm going to set this at 8 degrees. And I'll get my bevel gauge set up so I'm at the right angle. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my marking gauge and I'm going to score a line that's going to be a shoulder on both faces. I'll do that on both miters. See a pencil line that I used there just to figure out depth of the joint. That doesn't really mean much. In here. And now I can lay out that joint on there. And so I'm going to start by making a square line. Okay, that's the space that my dovetail is going to sit inside of. Then I'm going to take my dovetail gauge, or my little bevel gauge, sorry. I'm going to draw in the shape of my dovetail. This one here, I'm going to leave right out at the end. Okay, so I'm getting ready to cut my dovetails here. I have them all laid out and I've made a square line across the top. And I want to saw right to the line on this. I don't want to leave anything and then pare it. I want to cut this right on the line. And then after the fact, I can work on it a little bit more. But I want a nice square cut of what I'm doing. So I start on the end grain. That's nice and square. And then I start angling the saw down. And then I want my shoulder on this side. And I'll level the saw off a bit and stop. And I'll do the same thing here. That's perfectly square cut. And then follow my line the whole way down. And cut that piece right off. Okay, Now I want to make a shoulder cut about halfway through, a little bit less than halfway through. And this joint that we're making is going to be a half-lapped dovetail. So I deepen my line with a knife, and then I'm going to go through and cut it again with a knife. And that gives me almost like a little track that the saw can ride in. That's perfectly on that shoulder, and I know that shoulder is exactly at 45 degrees because I scribed it from my nice mitre on the end. So now I'm going to take this, start working into that little groove there. And I'm just eyeing the saw to keep it nice and vertical. And like I said, I don't want to go more than halfway through, so that's far enough. And we'll do the same thing on this mitre over here. I'm going to go into the cut line of my marking gauge and make it a little deeper. And then carve out a little bit of the wood. And then I can take my saw, just let it sit right on that little curve in there. Keep the saw nice and straight up and down. Saw not quite halfway through, and there I'm done. That's those cuts, and my dovetail's cut. Now, I need to get rid of that piece of wood there. So to do that, I'm going to take my square and draw a little line across here that lines up with the saw cut I just made. And I'm going to saw down into that. Clamp this into my vise vertically. Just crack that last little piece out. Do the same thing on the other end. I saw in the curve. Crack the piece up. So now either end is starting to get a dovetail on it. And now we move to the next step.